Hi, this video is aimed at giving you a brief look at our advanced analysis tools. Advanced analysis is a feature that we've had as a work in progress for a little while now, and we've had a bit of a demo on the portal, but I thought it was about time I give the users an overview of how to use it properly, as there are some features that you may not know about. So let's have a bit of a look. So at the top here, this gives us our option to choose how we want to view the data on the main map. So we can go between viewing throttle and brake trace, we can view gear trace, steering, lap time cumulative, momentary and speed delta. I'll come back to that a little later in the video. Below that we have our view of the data at any point along the track. These two little circles here, these indicate where the current selection is, and the data on the left here shows you at that point on the track what's going on. So if I click over here, we can see we're 10 seconds into the lap. There's 100% brake pressure being applied at the moment, so on and so on. There's a widget view version of this as well, basically just a visual aid, but you probably find the grid view is preferable most of the time. Below that we've got our overview of the track. And the name of the track. In this case we're doing a demo with Dubai Autodrome. Along the bottom here is what's called our lap delta. So basically we have a reference lap and a comparison lap, and this graph shows you how you're tracking in the comparison lap relative to the reference lap. So you can see for the first kilometre or so of this track, the times are pretty much the same. Then a little bit of time gets lost over the next 500 metres. A little bit's gained back, and then for the next sort of half of the length of the track, the comparison lap is running nicely ahead on time of the reference lap, and then towards the end they lose it all and then drop away significantly. So obviously above this is our actual enlarged view of the track map. Above that we've got our different views. We can switch to throttle, brake, steering, gear, speed, RPM, or back to track. And above that is how we actually select our sessions. So when you first open the analysis tools, it'll just pick your latest session and grab your fastest lap and second fastest lap from that session. You click on session here, you'll get a list of all analysis sessions you've got recorded. Choose any one you want. And then on the comparison side, you'll get a filtered list for sessions matching the same track, because obviously you can only compare laps from the same track. So they can be different cars, but have to be the same track. Right, so let's take a look at this particular view. So this is our side-by-side throttle and brake view. Dark green is full throttle, dark red is full brake. The shades in between are varying degrees of those inputs. And then you'll see there's also this blue section. Basically blue indicates you've got overlapping pedal inputs. So you can see here the reference lap, they've got 95% throttle and 100% brake, and on the comparison lap 66% throttle and 68% brake. So they've got both pedals being depressed at the same time, which is generally not a good idea. You generally want to come off when you're going into your braking zone, you want to come off the throttle, get on the brake, and if you need to blip, then blip your throttle. But here there seems to be a fair bit of pedal overlap, which will generally just cost you a little bit of time. We can also see, if we take a look over here for example, which is a bit more obvious, you can see the difference in when they started braking. So the reference lap, they started to change their pedal inputs here. On the comparison lap it was done a bit later, so they were on full brake early, so they brake for the corner earlier in the reference and later in the comparison. You can see these bits, these white bits for example, these are basically being off throttle or very low throttle input. So you can see here on the comparison lap we've got no throttle input, no brake input, and in the reference we've got a little bit of throttle, hence the light green there. So this is the complex twisty bit through the start of Dubai Autodrome. You see they're coming off throttle, a little bit of acceleration, back off throttle, a little bit more, back off the throttle again, back on full throttle, lift off, braking, off the inputs, just getting turned in, and back on the throttle for a little bit. Then in this lap they just lift to coast into the corner, whereas in the comparison lap there's a little bit of brake pressure applied to slow them down, and so on. We can then we can look at this in gear view. So this shows us which gear the driver is in at each point on the lap. So for example here on the start straight, at this point here, the comparison lap they've already changed into 6th, but in the reference lap they're still in 5th. Down here you can see on the comparison lap they change from 2nd to 3rd much sooner, whereas in the comparison lap they stay in 2nd a lot longer, all the way past the corner exit for getting into the next gear. Steering, let's have a look. So steering just gives us our input levels at the different corners. The darkness is the degree of steering input. They're mostly fairly consistent. You'll see probably if we go over here, there's a little more steering input being put in here, so they've probably been able to get themselves turned in a bit better. You can also see that the comparison lap, they've only got 2% input compared to 33%, which means they've had to open up their steering. Let's have a look at Delta lap time cumulative. So this particular view shows you your cumulative lap time delta. So it's very similar to the graph at the bottom, but just overlaid onto the map. So you can see during this first part the times are very, very similar. There's only minimal amounts in it. Then they start to fall away here, they lose a bit, and they get back to ahead of their reference lap, lose a bit, then get back ahead, and then they stay reasonably ahead for this whole second section of the track until the second last corner, where obviously the mistake must have been made. They've lost a heap of time, and then they lose this time all the way through the rest of the lap. Now if we switch to momentary, basically this breaks the track up into little microsectors, and you can see where the larger time gains and time losses are. So you can see it's all fairly small. There's a little bit there. There's a large time loss there, but they do gain some of it back, so it's a different corner entry and exit approach there. Down here we can see they gained a lot of time on entry, which is when we looked at the brake trace we noticed they braked a lot later into the corner, so that makes sense. And then obviously they've probably gone in a little deep and then lost a heap of time on the way out. Then they've been fairly even all the way through here. They've lost some under braking here, gained a little bit in the corner, and then lost a heap here, and that then has followed through for the remainder of the lap. And we can also look at our speed delta. So this is the vehicle speed relative to the other lap. It's all pretty consistent here. See here, there's a little bit of a difference. We're down 16.9 kilometers an hour in the mid corner here, but then they gain that by getting back on the throttle earlier and powering through this corner better. So there's a bit of a gain there. We can see here, this is where they brake later. You see there was a larger increase in the gap, so it got up to about 20 kilometer an hour difference because of the later braking. And then it sort of evened out a bit. They lost a little bit through this corner. They've obviously had to apply probably a little bit of brake or something. They've come up here, and then here they've lost a lot of time, so down by 25 k's. So they've obviously had a problem in this part of the lap. If we go back here, what we can also do, we can look at our charts, for example, and if we see something of interest, say here, we can see there's a bit of a difference between the reference and comparison lap. We can highlight that. That'll zoom us in, and then we can see how on the reference lap they've been able to get back on the throttle earlier, pick up the speed, and carry that speed right up to the next section. Whereas here there's been they've got on the throttle and then had to back off again, lost that speed, got back on, had to lift a little bit and then go back on. That's cost them time. So we look at the throttle trace as well. We can see when we get to here, we're back on full throttle planted, whereas here we're on sort of half throttle and then slowly getting back up to full throttle. There was obviously that got on throttle early here, like I said, and have had to back off completely to regain control and then start accelerating again. So that's what's cost some time in this particular section. When you're in one of these views, it zooms all the charts and the track map into the section of track that you're looking at. You'll see down the bottom here that the Delta chart also zooms in. These little tags here, you can grab these and expand them. This changes effectively the area you're looking at, and it affects all these charts as well. You can grab this and move it over here to have a look at this part of the track, for example. So that kind of just lets you get a bit closer to make more precise measurements of the track and click in more precisely and analyze what's going on. So here we can see there's a lot more overlap here. It runs a bit longer before they're on full brake, for example. And if you want to go back to the normal screen, just click Reset Zoom, and then you're back out to here. So that concludes my overview of the advanced analysis tools for the RS-Dash portal. The data for this feature comes from a new app we have called RS-Dash ASR, or Advanced Session Recorder. It's a standalone app for your mobile device that's dedicated to recording, compiling and uploading the required data to our online portal.